Suffering does not come from what happens, but from your resistance to it. If you want to break the cycle of emotional pain, the first thing you must understand is a brutal truth. Suffering is not caused by what happens to you, but by your resistance to what is. Most people spend their entire lives without understanding this, remaining trapped in a perpetual state of suffering, unaware that they themselves are perpetuating it. Carl Jung explained this with one of his most powerful quotes: "What you resist persists." And this is not just a nice phrase. It is a psychological and spiritual principle that can completely transform your life. Think about this. When something bad happens, you experience a natural reaction. It could be sadness, anger, disappointment, or any other emotion. But suffering does not come from the event itself. It comes from the internal struggle against reality. It is the mind saying, "This shouldn't be happening. I can't live with this. This isn't fair." That rejection is what turns pain into endless torture, the true origin of suffering. The human mind is designed to seek control. We want things to go the way we expect. We want to avoid pain at all costs. We want the world to operate by our rules. But life does not function on our terms. When an event defies our expectations, the first thing we do is resist. We refuse to accept reality as it is, and this is where suffering originates, in the fight against the inevitable. Consider this. If a relationship ends, the natural pain might last days, weeks, or even months. But the suffering that lingers for years comes from the refusal to let go, from reliving memories over and over, clinging to the idea that this shouldn't have happened. The same occurs with any loss, betrayal, or failure. It is not the event that destroys you, but your constant struggle against what is already a fact. How to break this destructive cycle? Here enters the spiritual principle that can change everything: radical acceptance and attention. Acceptance is not the same as resignation. It does not mean you like what happened or approve of it. It means you choose to release resistance. Instead of exhausting yourself in an endless battle against reality, you channel your energy into what you can control, your response. When you truly accept, something incredible happens. The weight of suffering begins to diminish, not because the pain disappears immediately, but because you stop feeding it with resistance. Think of someone who lost their job. If they cling to anger, resentment, and the idea that it was unfair, they might remain trapped in pain for years, blaming the world and feeling like a victim. But if they accept reality and ask, "What can I do with this now?" they take control of their life and transform pain into growth. The key lies in your perception. Jung spoke of the importance of integrating everything we experience, even the negative, because pain, when accepted rather than resisted, becomes wisdom. A major mistake we make is believing our suffering is unique, that no one else has gone through what we are experiencing. But the truth is, pain is part of the human experience. Everyone feels it at some point. What differentiates those who move forward from those who remain trapped is their relationship with that pain. Those who resist pain suffer. Those who accept it grow. If you truly want to heal, the first step is to stop waging war against life. Accept what happened. Accept what you cannot change, and focus on what you can transform. What no one tells you about freeing yourself from suffering. The most surprising thing is that when you apply this principle in your life, you realize something incredible. Most of what has made you suffer did not come from the event itself, but from how you clung to the pain. A relationship ended and hurt you for years? It wasn't just the breakup. It was your refusal to let go. Someone betrayed you and you couldn't move on. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was your attachment to resentment. You lost an opportunity and couldn't progress. It wasn't just the lost chance. It was your obsession with what could have been. When you release resistance, when you stop fighting reality, suffering crumbles. This doesn't mean the pain disappears immediately, but you stop feeding it, and over time, it becomes a lesson rather than a burden. What comes next? How the unconscious mind perpetuates suffering. Now comes something even deeper. In the next point, we'll discuss how your unconscious is programmed to repeat the same patterns of suffering over and over without you realizing it. Once you understand that suffering comes from resistance, the next step is to discover why. Despite knowing this, you keep repeating the same pains again and again. When you discover the answer, you'll realize you have far more power over your life than you ever imagined. So keep watching, because in the next section, we'll reveal how your mind is conditioned to cling to suffering and what to do to break that pattern once and for all. Your unconscious is programmed to make you suffer, again and again. If you think suffering is something that simply happens to you, it's time to wake up to a truth no one tells you. You yourself are repeating it without realizing it. Not because you want to suffer, but because your unconscious is programmed to keep you trapped in the same pain over and over. Carl Jung explained this brutally. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This means the pain you keep experiencing is no coincidence. It's not because life hates you or the universe is against you. It's because within you are emotional and mental patterns you keep repeating automatically. The invisible trap of the unconscious. Your unconscious mind is like software installed in you since childhood. If you grew up in an environment where you learned that love equals suffering, abandonment is inevitable, or the world is a cruel place, those beliefs became etched into your system. What no one tells you is that your unconscious doesn't seek to make you happy. It seeks what is familiar. So even if consciously you want to escape suffering, a part of you keeps attracting the same experiences. Do you notice you always end up in hurtful relationships? That whenever something good comes into your life, you somehow sabotage or lose it? That you always face the same type of problems, even when you swear this time will be different? That's not coincidence. It's your unconscious repeating what it knows. Emotional self-sabotage. Why you keep choosing what destroys you. If as a child you learned that love comes with abandonment, today, without realizing it, you'll be drawn to people who make you feel the same. Not because you want to suffer, but because your mind seeks to confirm what it has always known. If you experienced rejection or humiliation in childhood, you might avoid opportunities today for fear of being rejected again. You prefer to stay in what's safe, even if it means remaining in pain. And here's the worst part. Until you make this pattern conscious, you'll repeat it your entire life and think it's fate. People say, I always attract the same people. I always end up in the same place. Life always gives me the same things. But it's not life. It's you repeating the pattern within. How to break the unconscious suffering pattern. Here's the key. You cannot change what you don't see. If you truly want to break the cycle of emotional pain, the first step is to identify the pattern you've been repeating. Ask yourself, what emotion has been most frequent in my life? Rejection, abandonment, betrayal, frustration, fear? What types of relationships or situations do I always end up in? What story am I telling myself about who I am in the world that keeps me in suffering? When you discover the answers, you'll realize something brutal. The suffering you've been living isn't something coming from outside. It's something you carry within and project over and over into your life. The moment everything changes. Breaking the cycle of emotional pain doesn't mean you'll never feel sadness or frustration again. It means you'll no longer be a prisoner of a pattern that repeats unnoticed. Because the moment you become conscious of your unconscious programming, you stop being its slave. You can't avoid pain in life, but you can avoid perpetuating it. You can choose consciously instead of acting on autopilot. Now, in the next point, we'll dive deeper into how the ego plays a key role in keeping you trapped in suffering and what you must do to dismantle it before it continues sabotaging your life. Because once you understand the ego's role in all this, you'll truly begin to reclaim control. The ego feeds on your suffering and keeps it alive. If you truly want to break the cycle of emotional pain, here's something you must understand. Your ego is the biggest obstacle on your path to healing. The ego is that inner voice telling you you're right to feel hurt, that the world is unfair to you, that others must change for you to heal. But here's the brutal truth. The ego doesn't want you to heal, because without your suffering, it ceases to exist. Carl Jung said, "The mind that created the problem cannot be the same mind that solves it." And the problem is that the ego is precisely the mind that has created all your suffering. If you try to heal from the ego, all you'll do is reinforce the same pain you're trying to escape. How the ego sabotages your emotional healing. The ego is cunning. It doesn't outright say it wants you to keep suffering. Instead, it convinces you that you have valid reasons to stay this way. It makes you cling to the past, repeating over and over what they did to you, how they betrayed you, how life was unfair. It makes you believe that constantly thinking about these things gives you some kind of power. But in reality, it only keeps you trapped in the same pain. The ego makes you identify with your suffering. Without realizing it, you start defining yourself by your pain. You say things like, "I'm someone who's always betrayed. I'm always left behind. The same things always happen to me." By doing this, you reinforce that identity in your mind. The ego makes you believe the problem is external. It tells you the problem is the other person, that life owes you something, that circumstances must change before you can feel okay. But this is the perfect trap. You're always waiting for something external to change instead of claiming your own power. The ego feeds on conflict, comparison, and wounds that don't heal, because it itself keeps picking at the scabs until they bleed again. The victimhood trap, how the ego keeps you weak. One of the subtlest ways the ego sabotages you is through victimhood. When you're trapped in victimhood, you think everything bad that happens is others' fault or fate's doing. While it may seem like you're protecting yourself, all you're really doing is relinquishing your personal power. Because if you believe you have no control over your life, you'll never do anything to change it. And that's exactly what the ego wants. To keep you small, helpless, and trapped in suffering. But here comes the hardest truth. No one is coming to save you. No matter how much you suffer, complain, or blame others, the only person who can break the cycle is you. How to dismantle the ego and reclaim control of your life. The first step to disarming the ego is recognizing that it is not you. You are not your suffering. You are not your past. You are not that inner voice telling you you'll always be a victim. The ego wants you to cling to your pain because that's what keeps it alive. But the moment you stop feeding it, it weakens and loses power over you. Here are 3 ways to start breaking the ego's hold. Observe the voice in your head. When the ego starts reminding you of your wounds or making you feel life is unfair, observe it. Don't identify with that voice. Just watch it and realize it's not you. It's just a mental program replaying. Stop feeding the story of suffering. Every time you replay in your mind what was done to you, every time you tell the same story of pain, you reinforce the wound. Ask yourself, does this story empower me or weaken me? If it weakens you, let it go. Do the opposite of what the ego wants. The ego wants you to react, to take offense, to stay trapped in the same emotion. But when you choose to respond with calmness, detachment, and acceptance, you break its power over you. The moment the ego loses its control over you, when you start seeing the ego for what it is, something incredible happens. It stops controlling you. You no longer feel the need to cling to pain, depend on external validation, or see yourself as a victim of circumstances. And in that moment, you realize something brutally powerful. Suffering was never in what happened. It was in how you interpreted it. The pain was real, but the story the ego created around it is what kept you trapped. Now, in the next point, we'll explore one of the most impactful truths about emotional healing. Pain doesn't disappear by fighting it, but by embracing it in a completely different way. When you understand this, you'll see that healing isn't something achieved in the future. It's something you can start experiencing right now. Stop resisting pain. What you resist persists. If there's one thing we were taught wrong since childhood, it's that emotional pain is something to avoid, suppress, or deny. We were told phrases like, don't cry, be strong, don't give it importance. Without realizing it, we learn to fight our own suffering instead of understanding it. But here's the reality no one tells you. What you resist persists. When you try to flee from pain, it only grows stronger. The more you suppress it, the more it controls you from the shadows. The more you refuse to feel it, the deeper it roots itself in your mind and body. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This means you cannot heal by ignoring your suffering, only by facing it head-on. The destructive cycle of resisting pain. Think of this. If someone pushes you, your instinctive reaction is to push back. The same happens with emotional pain. Every time you feel sadness, rage, or anguish and try to quickly rid yourself of those emotions, you only give them more power. You suppress what you feel. You don't want to cry or feel vulnerable, so you tell yourself, everything's fine, when it's not. But the pain remains, accumulating deep within. You distract yourself compulsively, hiding in work, your phone, social media, anything to avoid the void you feel. But when you're alone with yourself, it all returns with more force. You blame others. The ego convinces you the problem is external, the person who hurt you, the unfairness of life. But as long as you focus on blaming others, you'll never look inward to heal. This is the vicious cycle that traps so many people. It's not the pain itself that destroys us. It's the resistance to pain that makes it unbearable. the power of accepting pain instead of rejecting it. Here's the key to breaking the cycle. Stop resisting pain and start experiencing it consciously. It sounds contradictory, but it's the only real way to heal. Instead of trying to flee, allow yourself to feel. Instead of suppressing, observe it without judgment. If you feel sadness, feel it completely. If you feel anger, don't deny it. Observe it. This doesn't mean acting impulsively, but allowing yourself to experience the emotion without resistance. And here's the most surprising part. When you do this, when you truly surrender to the feeling without trying to change or suppress it, the pain begins to lose its grip on you. The principle of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. One of the most powerful truths you can learn is that everything passes. No emotion is eternal. No suffering lasts forever. But when you resist pain, you unnecessarily prolong it. Jung spoke of the importance of internal transformation, and impermanence is a fundamental part of that. Pain, like pleasure, is temporary. It's not something that defines you or will last forever. Think of the last time you went through a difficult moment. In that instant, you felt like you'd never get out. But here you are, with new experiences and perspectives. The same will happen with any pain you're feeling now. It too shall pass. How to practice radical acceptance of pain. If you truly want to stop being a slave to suffering, here are 3 steps you can start applying right now. Stop judging your pain. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel this way?" or "When will it end?" simply allow yourself to feel without labels. It's neither good nor bad. It's just an experience you're living. Observe it in your body. When you feel anxiety, anger, or sadness, don't get stuck in the mental story. Instead of thinking, "This is unfair," bring your attention to your body. Where do you feel this emotion? How does it manifest physically? Just observe it without fighting it. Breathe through the emotion. Instead of clenching your teeth and enduring it, breathe deeply and allow the emotion to flow through you. You don't need to do anything else. Just be present with what you feel. When you learn to accept pain instead of resisting it, something incredible happens. You realize it has no power over you. This doesn't mean the pain will disappear immediately, but its dominion over you breaks. And in that moment, instead of being a victim of suffering, you become someone who can move through it with maturity and strength. Your true power lies in accepting what is, not fighting against it. Most people spend their entire lives fleeing from pain, unaware that the only way to free themselves is by facing it. And when you do, when you stop resisting and simply experience it with full awareness, you discover something incredible. Pain is not the enemy. Suffering is not here to destroy you, but to transform you. Once you understand this, you stop fearing it. Now, in the next point, we'll discuss how to turn your pain into power. Because once you stop fighting it, you can use it as a tool to grow and evolve in ways you never imagined. And when you do, you'll see that healing isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Transform your pain into power, the alchemical process of healing. By now, you know that resisting pain only strengthens it, avoiding it only deepens it, and accepting it is the first step to liberation. But there's something even more powerful you can do with your suffering. Turn it into your greatest source of strength. Carl Jung explained this best when he spoke of internal alchemy. In ancient times, alchemists sought to turn lead into gold, but Jung discovered that true alchemy wasn't physical. It was psychological and spiritual. The lead represents our pain, fears, and deepest wounds. The gold is the wisdom, maturity, and strength we gain when we use that pain to grow. So the question isn't, how do I avoid suffering? But, how do I use it to become a stronger, wiser, and freer version of myself? The hidden power of pain, a call to awakening. Think of the strongest people you know, those who've developed deep wisdom about life. They didn't get there because they had an easy existence. They achieved it because they walked through the fire of suffering and emerged transformed. Every experience of pain is an opportunity to awaken, to stop being who you were, and become someone more conscious, resilient, and connected to reality. Jung spoke of the dark night of the soul, a period when a person faces their greatest suffering, but also their greatest opportunity for transformation. It's the moment when everything seems to collapse, when you believe you can't take anymore, when the pain feels unbearable. But if instead of resisting you ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I use this pain to grow?" then you stop being a victim and become the alchemist of your own life. From destruction to rebirth. How pain forges a new version of you. Every time you go through a loss, betrayal, or deep disappointment, something inside you dies. But what most people don't understand is that death is necessary. It's the death of illusions, false expectations, and identities that no longer serve you. After every death comes a rebirth, a chance to rebuild yourself stronger and more authentic. If you look back on your life, you'll see the moments that marked you most weren't the happiest, but those where you faced adversity and overcame it. That is the process of transformation. Pain destroys you. It shatters the beliefs you held about yourself and the world. It forces you to look in the mirror and confront everything you'd ignored, the parts of yourself you'd rather not see. It gives you the choice to stay trapped or evolve, and the decision is yours. How to use pain to strengthen rather than weaken you. Here's a practical method to transform any pain into power. Shift your mindset. Pain is not a punishment. It's an initiation. People who see suffering as injustice stay trapped in bitterness, but those who see it as a transformation process emerge stronger than ever. Every difficult experience you go through is a test life gives you to teach you something. So instead of asking, why me, ask, what is this experience trying to teach me? Turn your story into your power. Look at people who've endured extreme pain and used it as a source of impact. Those who were rejected and learned to validate themselves. Those who were betrayed and learned to trust their intuition. Those who hit rock bottom and discovered an inner strength they never imagined. Your story is yours. But what you do with it depends entirely on you. Use pain as fuel for your goals. Pain can destroy you or propel you. You decide which direction to take. If someone hurt you, use it as motivation to grow. If you feel life has been unfair, prove you can overcome any obstacle. If a loss left you empty, fill yourself with a greater purpose. The most successful people in the world didn't get there because they never suffered. They got there because they used their suffering as an engine to go further. The final test. Turning pain into wisdom. When you've moved through suffering and learned from it, something incredible happens. You become immune to many things that once affected you. You stop reacting to others' negativity because you understand their projections aren't yours. You stop fearing pain because you know you can move through it and emerge stronger. You become a person with an imposing presence because you've walked through darkness and found your own light. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are without masks, fears, or dependence on external validation. When you reach this point, the cycle of emotional pain breaks. You no longer define yourself by suffering. You no longer need to avoid or fear it. You simply use it as a teacher to keep evolving. And then you realize something incredible. Pain didn't make you weaker. It made you invincible. The decision is in your hands. Now you know, pain isn't something to avoid. It's the spark that can ignite your greatest transformation. You have two choices. Stay trapped in suffering, resisting, feeling like a victim of circumstances, or use it as a springboard to become someone stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than ever. Only one of these options will give you freedom. Which will you choose? If you decide to break the cycle and use every hard experience as a stepping stone for your growth, nothing and no one will be able to stop you. Choose to break the cycle and transform your pain into power. At this point, you have two paths before you. You can keep allowing pain to control your life, poisoning your thoughts, draining your spirit, and limiting your growth. Or you can do what very few are willing to do. Use that pain as a catalyst for your transformation. Carl Jung said it clearly. You cannot awaken without first hitting rock bottom. Now that you understand the truth behind suffering, you have the power to decide what you'll do with it. The cycle of pain only breaks when you take control, when instead of letting suffering define you, you turn it into the fuel that drives your evolution. When you realize everything you've endured wasn't a punishment but an initiation, pain only has power over you if you keep resisting. In the comments write, I transform my pain into power. If you choose to be the person who takes control of their destiny instead of being controlled by suffering, because once you make that decision, nothing and no one will stop you. If you've made it this far, you're ready to change your life. But this is only the beginning. Watch the next video, which will leave you speechless and help you dive even deeper into this path of transformation. Click now, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss content that can truly change how you see life. See you in the next video.